Have you guys ever just watched and followed a character who we just love to hate, whether it be due to their crazy personality or the many heinous acts that they commit? Regardless of the reasonings though, these types of characters definitely do make their mark in their respective titles, games, and movies. Well, how would this be applied in Resident Evil? I mean, the franchise has been long-standing for more than 2 decades, and at this point, we've faced many villains that had the potential to be the most hated antagonists that we've ever faced. Well, that is until we encounter the characters that we'll be discussing in this video, because here, we'll be covering the most sinister, the most conniving, the most psychologically damaged individuals in this franchise, which in essence we'll be discussing and focusing on the evil in Resident Evil, and how these characters were some of the most evil characters in the RE franchise. So sit back and relax as we move through the timeline of this series and quickly summarize why these characters epitomize the word evil.
Good luck!
Which we can begin all the way back to the Raccoon City incident happening in the late 1990s, which the first 3 games covered. But inside the story arc between RE1 to RE3, a character who was brooding in the background and would eventually make his mark, making him one of the most sick and evil characters in this franchise, which would be the Raccoon City Police Department's Chief Brian Irons.
Isn't she beautiful? I was about to stuff her.
Well, depending on which version of Resident Evil 2 you play, and the many side stories that has covered the plotline regarding Chief Irons, many small details and major acts has deemed this individual to be a complete psychopath, which in this video, we'll be summarizing the many details that surrounds Chief Irons from all the games and side stories that covered this character, starting off with his background and his rise to power within the Raccoon City Police Department. Well, it was shown that Chief Irons already had many evil tendencies even when he was a child, resorting to torturing small and innocent animals, which funny enough would follow him to adulthood when he would take on the hobby of taxidermy. But growing up into his adolescence, Brian Irons, during his tenure in a university, was known to have assaulted and made some inappropriate advances to his female colleagues, though all this would be brushed under the rug due to his many background dealings, leaving him innocent from all the crimes that he's committed.
You heard her, I swear to God, my brother is stars and I will fuck.
Well, this habit of him being just a complete sick human being would follow him until he reached the peak of his standing, which was his position of becoming the chief of the police department of Raccoon City. This would allow Chief Irons to commit so much more shady dealings in the background, which the Umbrella Corporation was known to be his biggest clientele, which he worked alongside the evil corporation by hiding all the illegal activities and experimentations that this company was conducting in Raccoon City. In return, he would be financially rewarded, allowing him to buy all the luxuries of art and paintings that we saw in the RPD station. Well, to add to his already corrupt role as a police chief, he blatantly ignored the pleas of the STARS team after the events in Resident Evil 1, which they discovered the Umbrella Corporation was involved with the inhumane experimentations involving the T-virus, causing those infected to become zombies and monsters. This of course came to deaf ears with Chief Irons, and to make matters worse, he disbanded the STARS team officially, causing their reputation to plummet and their voices hold no weight when they try to let the public of Raccoon City know about the shady acts of Umbrella. But if that wasn't enough, the most heinous and evil acts that Chief Irons would commit would be during the Raccoon City incident in the events between Resident Evil 2 and 3, because in the middle of the chaos of the zombies and monsters infestation, he would add more chaos to the already shaken up police station, which he would have the remaining police officers completely disorganized and ordering them to hide and split the ammo caches throughout the department, leaving them defenseless against the countless monsters that roamed the police station. But the absolute worst of his atrocities was his decision to kill the remaining survivors inside the RPD station at the latter portion of the outbreak. Here, he would be famously known for the death of the mayor's daughter, which the original Resident Evil 2 and RE2 remake depicted, and regardless of which version you played and how he acted between the 2 games, we know for a fact that he was a complete psychopath and his evil nature was in full display.
Leave me alone. Just please.
Time to teach some manners. You little bitch! You're gonna pay for this! You little shit!
But since we are talking about the two versions of Resident Evil 2, we have to mention his role in RE2 Remake's orphan area, which he tormented the young Sherry Birkin, which in itself makes this guy a complete asshole. But in the original RE2, we can find a file about Chief Irons and how he enjoyed killing one of the officers in the RPD station and committing many other heinous acts, which reads, September 23rd is all over. Those imbeciles from Umbrella have finally done it. Despite all their promises, they've ruined my town. Soon the streets will be infested with zombies. I'm beginning to think that I may even be infected myself. I'll kill everyone in the town if this turns out to be true. September 24th, I was successful in spreading the confusion among the police as planned. I made sure that no one from outside will come to help. With the delays in police action, no one would have the chance to escape my city alive. I've seen to it personally that all escape routes from inside the precinct have been cut off as well. There are several survivors still attempting to escape through the lower levels, but I'll make sure no one gets out. September 26th, I've had a change of heart about the remaining survivors inside the precinct. I've decided to hunt them down myself. I shot Ed in the back through the heart less than an hour ago. I watched him writhe in pain upon the floor in a pool of his own blood. The expression on his face was positively exquisite. He died with his eyes wide open, staring up at me. It was beautiful. I wonder if the mayor's daughter is still alive. I let her escape so I could enjoy hunting her down later. I'm going to enjoy my new trophy. Yes, frozen forever in the pose I choose to give her. So all in all, the role of Chief Irons in Resident Evil definitely makes him not just an antagonist that we love to hate, but a character that embodies the word evil.
Oh god. Get off me! Oh my god!
So with him out of the way, the character who would be the embodiment of the word evil, and also a person that we love to hate, would be Nikolai from Resident Evil 3 and RE3 Remake.
No, wait, please!
What the fuck?
He was infected.
He might have been infected.
Oh, stars, this soft. No wonder so many of you dead.
And what are you, UBCS? Killing your own people?
He would have turned. There's your sense of self-preservation.
Which, to begin, as far as we know, Nikolai was part of the UBCS, or the Umbrella Biohazard Countermeasure Service, which this group of individuals were tasked to contain the outbreak that was ensuing during the Raccoon City timeline and rescue any remaining civilians in the city.
Good luck!
Well, that was the purpose for most of the UBCS members, except for Nikolai, because he was actually a special operator within the UBCS, also known as a monitor, which his role was to gather combat data from all the BOWs that was roaming in the city, which in this case seeing the monsters attack civilians, police officers, and even his own UBCS comrades. This, funny enough, would be elaborated more in Resident Evil 3 Remake with the conversation he had with Mikhail, another member of the UBCS. Though unlike Nikolai, he actually cared for his comrades, but listening to their conversation, it was implied that Mikhail saw through the ruse of Nikolai, shown with this clip.
Funny how brainless zombies can ambush a platoon like that. Funny the gate was locked, don't you think?
As we can tell, Nikolai didn't argue Mikhail's point. If anything, he found it amusing and gave a small smirk. This fact makes me want to hate this character a lot more due to his lack of empathy and the complete disregard for anybody else besides himself. But the sheer relentlessness of his greed to acquire data makes him, like Chief Irons, a psychopath but also a truly evil human being. Then we have the added scenes of him adding more salt to the wound shown here.
Why is she here?
She's hoping to get the trains running again.
Bad time to start getting dead weight, friend. She's unreliable. Can't pull the trigger when it counts.
Nikolai, what are you doing?
It's not after you.
Nikolai!
Oh, what do we have here?
Nikolai, don't! The city needs that vaccine!
More than I do. I don't think the wisdom I've been trying to impart on you is getting through. Now I know you can't put a price on life. But I'm in this business to get paid.
Next up would be the antagonist that we would have to face in Resident Evil Code Veronica, which would be Alexia Ashford and her use of the T Veronica virus, which we could begin with her origins. Alexia grew up as a wealthy prodigy under the Ashford banner, which if you guys didn't know, the Ashford family has been a prominent nobility for quite some time, with the most notable being the late Veronica Ashford, who is known to both embody intelligence and beauty, leading the prominence of the Ashford name for years to come, with her descendants continuing the Ashford name. Eventually, Edward Ashford would be a prominent member himself, being known to be a co-founder of the Umbrella Corporation alongside Oswald E. Spencer and James Marcus. Well, his lineage would come to a halt only a few generations after him, with Alexia Ashford being the last. So how would this correlate with Alexia and her being the evil and sadistic character we saw her to be? Well, this all plays out at the very beginning of her family tree, because we discovered that her father Alexander Ashford, who was an Umbrella researcher himself, well, he had a plan to clone the late Veronica Ashford, with the reasonings to this was to keep the Ashford name in power in case if anything were to happen to him and his father Edward Ashford. Well, with the end results from obtaining DNA sample from Veronica and engineering it to create a clone, hence Alexia Ashford.
It's Alexia!
Alexia? There really is an Alexia?
It is almost time, you genetically inferior siblings.
Well, upon discovery of her true birth, Alexia, who at the time was a child prodigy with a genius level intellect, well, this would be the final catalyst that would propagate her already insane nature, because even though she was a genius, she alongside her brother Alfred Ashford was very interested in the hive-like nature of ants and the servient nature of the queen. This interest of her would eventually have her start a new viral strain called the T Veronica virus, an amalgamation of both the progenitor virus and the genome that caused the ants to be controlled by the queen ant. So with that premise, Alexia's insanity would have her experiment this newly developed T Veronica virus on her own father Alexander Ashford, though the end result would have Alexander become the monster that we fought in RE Code Veronica, known as Nosferatu. Though you would think that this failed experiment on her father would have her stop her continued research into the T Veronica virus, well, that wouldn't be the case, because it turns out that she would inoculate herself with the virus, but instead of following in her father's results of becoming a mindless monster, she would have herself put into cryostasis-like condition, allowing the T Veronica virus and her body to merge without any kind of drawbacks like her father. Well, the end results would have her awakened 15 years later with the full benefits of the T Veronica virus in hand, which depending on which version of Code Veronica you play, we see an alternative scene where Alexia would kill her own brother Alfred after waking her up.
Oh, that's right. You two are brother and sister, aren't you? I had a brother once too. He really wasn't much fun. He couldn't even wake me up on time. But I've released him of all his responsibilities.
Which to my surprise, she had shown no remorse for her actions and deemed everyone was there to serve her experiments. This shows a lack of empathy and embodies someone who is a complete sociopath, going so far even to kill her own family members, all the while acting with this grandiose ego.
You think everyone in this world is here to serve you, don't you?
Serve me? No. I think everyone else is here to serve my experiments.
Anyway, speaking of ego, the next character who would embody both the word evil and ego would be the prominent superhuman-like antagonist that we fought in Resident Evil 5, which would be Albert Wesker and his megalomaniac attitude of becoming the god of the world.
The right to be a god. You. Arrogant even until the end. Only one truly capable of being a god deserves that right. The right
with Ouroboros. I have that right.
Well, this goal of him would come at the expense of the population of the world if successful, because in RE5, he would be in control of the Ouroboros strain, which upon infection of a certain human host, would either have them assimilate with it, or become a horrendous blob of nastiness. All this stemming to become the god of this new Ouroboros world, an ideal that he has gotten from Oswald E. Spencer, because similar to the likes of Alexia, which we just discussed, we can begin where it all started for him, which Albert's past is rooted from what they called Project Wesker, a project that would have countless children participate, which was headed by Umbrella co-founder Oswald E. Spencer, where he would have many children at his disposal, which the end goal was to have their children grow up and be the start of the eugenics world that he envisioned, a superior race of human beings with him at the helm. Though this project would start off with many participants, in the end, the result would have only 13 children with higher level intelligence be infected with the strain of the progenitor virus, leaving only 2 out of the 13 alive. And to Albert's benefit, this experimental progenitor strain gave him superhuman-like abilities after several inoculations, with the tipping point happening at the end of Resident Evil 1, in which we thought that Wesker was killed by the Tyrant, but later find out that he survived this fatal injury and waking up with his new imbued superhuman-like powers. Well, this aspect to his character only feeds the already insane mentality and ego that he already had, which in Resident Evil 5, he shows this in full display, and like the previous characters we've discussed so far, he too would show the lack of empathy towards those close to him, willing to infect the world's population with the Ouroboros strain, and having no qualms about that, which in the end is sad to see how he treated those around him and his circle with no remorse, and was willing to do anything to achieve his goals. So the aptitude to release the Ouroboros around the world, and the killing of those people close to him, this fact makes Albert Wesker a candidate as one of the most evil characters in Resident Evil. So moving on to our next 2 characters, which I will discuss in unison because of the connection from the very beginning of the Resident Evil timeline, which would be Oswald E. Spencer and Mother Miranda, because in summary, we learn in Resident Evil Village, Oswald E. Spencer and Mother Miranda were acquainted in the early part of the 1900s, which at the time, Spencer was a medical student visiting Mother Miranda at the remote village where we played RE Village. Well, the pairing of the two and their end goals would propagate the future of the world into ruin, because looking back at the origins of the two, we know that Mother Miranda started her experimentations of using the Megamycete and the mole strain after the death of her daughter Ava from the Spanish flu. This caused her to become stricken with depression and made her way to a nearby cave to end her life, which by luck she discovered the Megamycete underneath the village, granting her intelligence and the end goal of possibly reviving her daughter using the Megamycete.
Fuck you, you crazy bitch!
Well, this goal would have her experiment on the innocent villagers in the proximity, and giving what she called the Cadeau parasite to many individuals, resulting in what we saw from the 4 lords of Resident Evil Village, like for example, Alcina Dimitrescu.
Oh shit.
There you go. All this for a child who isn't even here.
What the hell, dude?
Well, this ideal of her bringing her daughter back to life did cause so much death to the innocent as she continued her research into the Megamycete, resulting in the catastrophes that we saw from the many games in the future Resident Evil timeline, because it was this goal of Mother Miranda and then her subsequent acquaintance to Spencer would lead to many deaths for decades to come, because this ideal of Mother Miranda would have a lasting impression on Spencer, though not going the route of using the Megamycete. Instead, Spencer's plan involved using his newly discovered progenitor virus, which as we know would lead to the creation of the T virus, G virus, and the many viral strains that we saw in Resident Evil, with so much inhumane experimentations conducted by both Spencer and Mother Miranda, which they went about in the most evil way possible, using the innocent for experiments. A shining example of this is from Spencer's standpoint was the tragic story of the Trevor family, which in summary, Spencer had George Trevor, an architect, design and construct the Spencer Mansion where the events of Resident Evil 1 occurred. Well, by the end of the construction, through some dark side stories that were happening in the background, we come to find out that George Trevor's wife and daughter were kidnapped by Umbrella, with Spencer knowing full well about this. The story that would ensue about the Trevor family would be one that would be one of the darker and sickening events in the Resident Evil timeline, where Spencer and the many Umbrella researchers would experiment on both Jessica and Lisa Trevor, which in the end would end the life of the mother and leave Lisa into this horrid and sad monster that we saw in Resident Evil 1 Remake. So Spencer, knowing full well what was going on in his own estate and the countless inhumane experiments that were being conducted in the name of researching the progenitor virus, Spencer definitely embodied someone who was pure evil, and Mother Miranda had a part in this situation because without her ideals and goals that would influence Spencer in his younger years, none of the horrid events of Resident Evil could have happened. Also, the fact that Mother Miranda did not display herself as a saint in any way possible, especially when we see her shower in the blood of Ethan Winter's heart.
I will make sure to sample your blood for later. Once dawn breaks, the ceremony will be complete, and I will become her true mother, bound for eternity in blood.
Anyways, which characters did you guys think embodied the word evil in Resident Evil? Please let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Also, if you guys enjoyed the content, then please feel free to like and subscribe for more videos like this in the future. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, you guys have a great rest of your day, and this is Hey DeVuH, and I'll see you guys on the next video.
I've spent a lifetime creating this moment, and you tried to take it away from me.